we are talking about with UN level and SDGs, and we are trying how we can bring more sustainability when it comes to humanitarian actions, and how we can give relief to the host community, and how we can bring more sustainability and resilience from the host communities to displaced people. You must be thinking who I am. Let me introduce myself. My name is Alila Noor, and originally I'm from Pakistan and now living in Netherlands. Myself, I'm also a person who went through the displacements and we became political asylum. I'm part of many refugee-led initiatives such as Global Refugee-Led Network and New Women Connectors. What we are doing, we are trying to advocate for the meaningful participation and to bring the voices to the people and the policy to the people. We have an amazing panel here, and I would like to open my mobile so I can go to their amazing introduction. Just a minute. We have Innocent, which we went to Kukuma a few days ago, and we saw Innocent's amazing work. And Innocent, he's a founder and MD of Kukuma Ventures, and he's an entrepreneur, a humanitarian professional. And Innocent has led many educational, business, humanitarian operation in Kukuma refugees, and we really witnessed that. Thank you so much, Innocent, for joining us. And then we have Gels. I'm just going to your bio. Kristen, he's a director of program, our amazing partner, Ashton, and Gels leading the strategy and the delivery of the UK and international awards and the sport and system change program at Ashton. And Ashton is actually a non-profit that works globally to really upskill the growth of sustainable energy to tackle climate change. And they are really trying to give visibility to amazing people from the ground. Thank you so much for joining. Then we have amazing Aman, and I have to speak slowly so Shaza, our colleague, can translate for that. And Iman is a head of a solar microgrid plant affiliated with UNDP. And Iman, head of the solar microgrid plants in apps, is a dedicated and passionate entrepreneur from rural area of Germany. It's such a pleasant to have you here, Iman. Thank you so much. We also have one participant, Glida, from our partner from Chatham House. She's just trying to find out the zigzag and complex of COP27. I hope she can join us soon. So before going to our session, I would like to see, when you are listening to the discussion to our panelists, remember the purpose, how we can link, how we can think, how we can unpack the humanitarian, the future of energy. It's really important. And I have a video before I go to Innocent, and if they can play the video. Yes, they are doing their video.
My name is Innocent Chilombo, and I've been living in Kakuma refugee camp since 2009. I came to Kenya when I fled my home country, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and the founder of Kakuma Ventures. When I arrived here, there was no access to energy, there was no access to internet. I needed to connect to my university in the US. When I faced those challenges, and I succeeded, then I said, okay, I should build something that can also support others so that more people can also graduate from the refugee camp. The cost of the internet is always very high in developing countries. Kakuma Ventures provides cheap internet, which allows customers to save up to 70% of their cost. We've been able to connect more than 1,400 people to the internet, and some of them, it was their first time to really connect to unlimited internet. Kakuma Ventures have been providing training to the wide community. because there is a huge gap when it comes to digital literacy here in the refugee camp. Young people come here to access internet, to access digital literacy, to access other content and information. For us to do our job, we work with entrepreneur partners, refugees. They are like the frontliner for us because they do the solar maintenance and they also respond to all the needs of the customers. We're able to pay them in cash.
Kwa majina naitwa Morani Mtebwa Maji na supply hapa wifi block 6 mzima.
We were inspired also to develop the listing platform whereby we allow refugee entrepreneurs to list their products through our portal. We list all these products in this shop through our portal so that people out there can buy from them through the internet. Kakuma Ventures, as a refugee-led and founded organization, faces a lot of challenges. People look at it as temporary, and yet the refugee life never been temporary. People have been living in Kakuma refugee camp for more than 2 decades now. Refugees are people who are smart, they work hard. It's really very important for the refugees to get connected to the rest of the world so that they can be able to trade with them, to work with them. The refugees should not remain behind.
Wow, amazing. It's amazing to see all the reality from the local background. Meanwhile, we are watching the video. Our panelist, Glida, she also joined. Welcome, Glida. Thank you so much. So, Innocent, while we are watching your video, amazing video, and we have a glimpse of Kukuma venture as well. So would you like to share about your experience setting up the Kukuma venture, the opportunity and challenge which you saw, and what helped you, like how you come up this idea about and the challenges you face? Would you like to share with us?
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you to everyone who joined us this evening. Actually, if we should talk about challenge, then those are the everyday life that the refugee lives in, because it's all about challenges. And whenever you want to bring again something new, you mean you add a new layer of challenge. And that's what happened because, with Kakuma Ventures being a refugee-led organization, then it faces all the restrictions that applies to its owners, its founders. They apply the same way to the company as well. And as a company that you want to bring in about innovation, digital services, and you face all those restrictions, you don't really see that you are going anywhere. But overcoming those challenges requires patience, and that's what really helped us a lot to build this. And also hard work. You should go beyond. You should do more for you to achieve something little. Too much effort, but little result. And we kept really accepting the challenge, and we did it. The inspiration for that really came from the struggle of every day. Being in the setting of the refugee, I understand better what our problems, and with that better understanding, I know what works and what doesn't work. Although I might not tell you this are the evidences, I cannot come and tell you this what we have as evidence, but at least I know because I've been in the refugee camp for several years, and we have seen programs coming through the NGOs and so on, and they never solved any problem because people kept coming back on the receiving end of aid, And us building Kakuma Ventures, it's all about creating availing enabling tool to the people so that they can be able to take their own lives in their own hands. And through that, maybe they have options that they can explore and do their own way, find their own way, find their own, let's say, interests and build their own future.
Thank you. You really, express it's all about people. Challenge was there, but you really turned these challenges into opportunity. Amazing. My next question, how you are seeing the livelihoods being improved and this dignity being restored in the loved one of the people in Kukuma camp after this? Do you feel a betterment and hope for the future?
As I just said that there's really little evidence when it comes to refugee camp. You don't know what really works and what doesn't really, and that what doesn't work. But until you really have a hand on something and you see the result coming out. And when we started this project, it was not just something that we just dreamed and we started immediately and we start seeing the result. It came out from a series of trial and errors, trying several solutions that we failed and we tested out until we reached this providing access to digital services, which we saw now the result that we see more and more refugees graduating from higher education, obtaining university degrees. And at the same time, with those degrees, they were able to unlock potential either for employment or maybe in business. And again, we saw like more and more refugees are embracing digital services. Something that they should put clear: refugees face really restrictions. You know, they should live in a very restricted area without freedom of movement, without access to the labor market. And you know, how can someone live in such condition? Let's say for a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades. It requires that we come up with something that not really bring conflict between the host community and the refugees. Like the refugees are here to take up our jobs, to destroy our environment. But we need to now build that virtual world. But to create that virtual world, we need to educate the community that has been systematically disconnected from the community, the society, so that they can understand, okay, you have access to energy, you have access to internet, but what for? Yeah, and that was really, really very key to have the success that we have been able to record and seeing displaced businesses being listed online to sell all over the world where people want to buy from them. Seeing people graduating, seeing people working as freelancers, developing graphic design skills, and you know, already it gives people that a sense of ownership, a sense of dignity that they can also they do something for themselves, but not depend on someone else.
Amazing. Innocent, last question for this round. You are talking about you bring more, hope. They believe they can unlock their potential. They have more knowledge and the opportunity they want to see. Do you need any help, especially when it's come to financial, to scale up your work? What kind of support you need? Would you like to share?
Actually, the environment in which you're operating in by itself needs to be restructured because, you know, for example, Kakuma refugee camp follows the traditional way of managing population, you know, and like imagine someone who has fled their home country. They had a life before being in a refugee camp, but when they arrive in the refugee camp, it's like now their life has stopped, and all those that are around policies that are discriminatory, that doesn't allow people, that is not inclusive, to include people in the police so that they can also be part of the community, the host community. But with all those challenges, you see, it will start there. It will start at the police level, the legal level, and also even in the system level, because it's all about systems. When I'm talking about the system, it's all about how refugees are managed. What are those texts? 1950 something, you know? That's a long ago, and life has changed, but the text never changed. We should start from there. Apart from that, you see, like the refugees, they really also face a lot of stereotypes. People say, okay, you are a refugee, then what? They don't expect much from you, but expect you maybe to be there to receive something. And when you come up with a project such as this, you know, you're not getting any support, let's say, in terms of funding, because when you want to ask for funding, for example, if there's money that has come to support developing country, and that money is targeting the government, and when you got that government that is hosting you, they tell you you don't belong here, you know, you are in between, you don't belong even to your home country, and you fall into cracks. You don't know how we build that up. And for that, we want that people come up with flexible funding that will include the refugees as another category, because we should be frank and speak really openly that this is all about another category that needs to be also included, because it has been set that way and we cannot deny that now. And apart from that, being in a remote area, in a marginalized community, we need people to come, share knowledge, share experience, so that also we get skills here. For example, we depend 100% on skills that are built from the camp. So to build a solution with people who don't have any other access, it's really very challenging because we lack the really profile that we need for us to build the innovation that we are doing. But to do that, we need people. Yeah, here we are seeing innovative ideas, but are those innovative ideas really going up the refugee camp? That's the big question for everyone, and maybe we'll interact with that. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. Please give him a big round. Thank you. So Innocent really helped me to invite my next speaker panelist, because Innocent talk about how we can demand from the systematic change, how we can turn the flexibility in the funding, and it's required data, it's required knowledge, it's required research. Glida, I will come to you, and I would like to ask you, based on your experience to working in Chatham House, why have been improvement to energy have been so hard to deploy at the scale in humanitarian context, and what is the difference between trying to implement this in the camps versus urban context?
Okay, lots to say there. So I began working on the issue of energy access in displacement context and humanitarian context in 2015. And there really wasn't a lot of data out there, but we found we did a lot of interviews, we did some pilot projects as well. And of course, one of the big barriers on the humanitarian agency side was the structure and the programming that looked at short-term relief solutions that would be delivered in a temporary way to address people's welfare, but not to think long-term. And that was a real barrier to thinking, how should we better plan settlements? How should we better build homes? How should we, institute actual grids, for instance, in refugee camps? The other problem, of course, is on the legal side and the political side, because governments hosting refugee communities in particular don't want to see infrastructure that looks very permanent unless they have a long-term vision of integration. And not many countries have that, but things are changing, and things have changed since we began that work in 2015. Certainly on the countryside, and the partnerships with the humanitarian sector have been changing, because governments recognize that if they were going to receive humanitarian assistance and aid flows, it should contribute to long-term development and resilience. So you have more of a crisis response and resilience approach emerging since at least 2016. That has formalized in some countries like Jordan, like Uganda, like Rwanda, in the form of crisis response or crisis response framework. So the Jordan, for instance, has the Jordan response plan to the Syria crisis, and that helps organize funding, because it says we need money for the health, education, and energy is included. Energy didn't used to be a priority for humanitarian agencies, but once the government started asking for it and saying energy access or sustainable energy deployment is really important for us, then there became this need to look at it and consider it. And on top of that, certainly in Jordan, the bills for the UNHCR that was running a couple of camps there became incredibly high, whether that was because of the dependence on diesel or because of use of energy from the grid. So they had to look towards other solutions, and that enabled donors to come in and offer a solar solution, for instance, in both Latri and Azraq camps, different models, but they both ended up delivering to the agency, and also linking to the actual shelters, to the actual homes where the Syrian refugees were living. So that's been a really interesting test case. It was the first of its kind, and it did rely on that kind of long, strong legal policy framework on the countryside. Another problem, coming to the kind of situations that Innocent was talking about, is that, as he was saying, it's better if it includes a market element, if it allows customers some choice, if it's, if it looks towards a more sustainable than just giving out a donation model. But for that to happen, businesses have to have some assurance that the agency is not going to then dump a load of products that compete and undermine the business model, say for solar home systems or for lighting or for cooking solutions. We also had a case in the Renewable Energy for Refugees project in Rwanda, where there was a big plan for a mini grid at one of the camps that would have served businesses and homes. but at the same time, the government was planning a grid extension, which of course put the investors off because they would not necessarily be able to recoup their costs and make money from their investment if the grid was coming, which it did in the end. And that meant that there was energy delivered to the agencies, to the operations, but not to the businesses and homes. So there's need to look at sometimes at quite mixed solutions and be flexible to change in policy. You know, sometimes whole camps are uprooted and moved elsewhere, as happened with Gahembe camp in Rwanda. And luckily, I hope the refugee families who bought solar home systems were able to take them with them. So that was one good thing, and the solar lighting was relocated, but it took a lot of, you know, planning and effort. So these kind of things, I think, are complex. They don't invite a one size fits all solution, and I think there's a lot of uncertainty for business. So the more information you have to begin with, and the more consultation you do with the actual users, the actual residents of camps, then the more the better you can plan for something. On the urban side, just quickly, I mean, about 60% of refugees and about 80 or 85% of displaced, internally displaced people live amongst the community in cities and towns. And so their energy is more of an issue of municipal infrastructure, and working with government and with local authorities or whoever has to give approvals for that. And it can be very powerful because a lot of the time those IDPs and refugees are very vulnerable. They are beholden to landlords. They might get into trouble for not being able to pay their utility bills, as happened in Jordan. So assistance is very welcome. And what the Norwegian Refugee Council did in Jordan under the RA4R project was to offer solar water heaters and insulation and some efficiency applications to landlords, so it would improve their property in return for a contract which gave the refugees more security of tenancy, as well as building more awareness in the community of renewable energy and energy efficiency. So that was one interesting example. Another one addressed schools, hospitals. So often humanitarian agencies are working in places that serve education and health needs, and they can be really interesting targets for retrofitting, for including all kinds of measures which make them a lot more resilient and sustainable. But it does require a very different approach to the camps, because you have to work with the authorities in charge and know a bit about the national objectives and infrastructure to make sure, and hopefully work with projects that have worked well before, not just come with your own innovation, because often there are very good civil society organizations, businesses, and government agencies already trying to do the same thing. And if you come and introduce something new, then that can conflict with what's already there.
Thank you, Gleda. One more question. You talk about different contexts, either is urban or refugee. You share how much is difference when it's come to people who don't want to make a sustainable infrastructure because they are afraid, they don't want to have refugee camps to turn into a urban setting. And you also talk about the mixed responses. I would like to see how you recommend what kind of learning point we can have from this kind of thing, and how we can take it for the betterment for the is when it's come to better partnership, and how we can not only give the relief to the communities from the displacement setting, but how we can create long-term help to the host communities or host countries. What do you think?
Thank you for that question. I think that again, I'll draw attention to Uganda and Jordan because they both put in place certain frameworks for cooperation between the humanitarian agencies, the government agencies, and other agencies involved in energy provision, and some of the larger NGOs working in this space. And that's helped a lot to avoid duplication, and also to figure out what approvals are needed, what plans are already in place, so how to do alignment. That's incredibly important. And sometimes it's also important to set up more specific working group on energy, because there can be quite a lot of players in the energy space. And so that can be very useful for, again, sharing data. In Jordan, for instance, several schools had been retrofitted and had solar applied, but when a new plan came along, they targeted some of the same schools, but if you share the information, you can avoid that. So that can be very helpful. In terms of, just coming back to the question of climate resilience, I think that we do need to look at co-benefits of energy at all times, really. There's a lot that can be done through applications you might not think about, like rainwater storage, applying that to housing, because water uses energy itself, and sometimes that has to be trucked in and has a diesel cost as well. We found that health and well-being improved in some of the housing that one of our projects addressed. It was called the Green Affordable Homes Project. Very nice, working with local NGOs, whereby people got double glazing, they got the temperature improved, the noise reduced, and not only that, they were able to collect water, be cooler in summer. So again, these kind of things the lessons learned can then be passed on to the national authorities, and probably play a role in informing more national scale-up plans. But I think to really scale up, we also have to bear in mind where the blockages are to scale up in a country. So that can range from the inability of a ministry to invest, to access capital, to say to apply solar to all schools, or to retrofit all houses, and work with those ministries, to work out how to do it. NRC had to go with a revolving fund, and that didn't quite work out, but then it tried again. And I think the concept is filtering through, and not only that, but there's a lot of there's real benefit. We're just putting together a paper that should be published soon on the lessons learned in that space. And I think there's a lot of joining up to be done when a country's already got a green growth plan or a climate resilience plan. What was learned from the humanitarian sector, because these are the most vulnerable people. So whatever has worked there, has huge potential for the vulnerable communities elsewhere in that country, the nationals.
Thank you. I would like to ask those audience who just joined us online and few audience who joined us in person, please feel free to ask your questions in the chat, because we are talking about how we can bring new long-term resilience in the humanitarian energy, and also to remember how we can work together. And sharing this reminder, I will go to my next panelist, Giles. And Giles, you are working in Ashton, and in Ashton is really bringing about visibility to the people and how we can scale up their work. So what do you think, what kind of challenge you face, and how we can bring more visibility? And because my mobile is turned off, so I'm trying to remember the question, but I really want to see your experience, what kind of challenge you face.
Okay, yeah. So the question we thought about before was really about inclusive investments. But if we come back to this, the question that's been sat in front of me the whole time about realizing a critical shift in humanitarian energy access. Like, I think all of us believe on this panel, and I know you do, Anita, that what we're really talking about is prioritizing the involvement of displaced peoples in energy access programming, whether that be by agencies or other work. But at Ashton, we really, really believe that more sustainable long-term solutions come from working with displaced peoples and refugees themselves. So people like Innocent and others like him that we've met, because they can be the consumers of energy, but also the agents of change, if you like. So I've been asked to talk about inclusive investments, and our approach is that it should always include displaced people. So, and what do I mean by inclusive investments? So they are investments that power enterprises and communities where people are the key ingredient, a bottom-up solution where they have higher levels of control, so that they can participate in decisions of how they are powered in the design and implementation of projects, that they can directly benefit from the supply of power, but perhaps also economically, like Innocent and his partners who own the businesses. So they have equity in them. And that other people involved and around the projects can develop technical and business skills. So perhaps through participation in selling energy products or the productive use of energy when they have those products. So they're creating livelihoods. And when Innocent and I have been talking, you know, what we really notice about his business is it allows displaced people to stand on their own 2 feet. It's a step. They're no longer being given something, but enabled with a tool to move on and to move on through their lives. So, yeah. So Ashton is, we're a climate solutions charity. We hope to accelerate transformative climate solutions like the work of Iman and Innocent to tackle climate change and build a more just world. We do this by an award scheme each year, and these two are both award winners at Ashton. So they've got sort of global recognition of their work, and for us that's really important. And we've been working in this space in energy access for over 20 years, but more recently in humanitarian settings. So partnering with Chatham House and yourselves at GRN and the GPA, because we really want to shine a light on this issue. And what we see are lots of barriers that are similar to those more generally in energy access. And kind of, I think we sort of know what they are, but projects are considered too small. They're difficult to aggregate. Even now, technologies are considered by financiers to be risky, even though they're very mature. Supply lines and distribution are very difficult to organize and make cost effective. Affordability is a real issue in the hands of refugees and displaced people. And then customers are hard to find and data is hard to acquire. So this is all classic last mile stuff, but take it into the humanitarian context and it's amplified, it's magnified. It's really, really difficult. And then for the mindset of funders, this presents all sorts of risks. And with funders, we know they price risks or they move away from things. So what we've noticed when we talk to funders in this area, because that's what we try to do, is crowd in funding around enterprises like Innocence, is that grant funding is still critical. They have to blend that finance. The cost of capital for anyone trying to work in these settings is high, and it's difficult to generate a profit. That creates a data around creditworthiness of businesses. So we have found that things like the role of intermediaries is really key. They translate the world, even of social impact investors and financiers, and the world of entrepreneurs like Innocent and others. That relationships are really key, and they have to be patient. You have to wait, and it takes time. And I know Innocent is good at fundraising, but it still is long-term relationships he's building with funders. And funders still have a preference for internationally well-known organizations rather than looking through and seeking people, you know, like these. And even then, the most sympathetic of funders demand an awful lot. Even the social impact investors who are driving a social and environmental benefit, mostly, they still often want to see a financial return because they may have a revolving fund and this kind of thing. And they ask for an awful lot: due diligence and financing packages, context, market, security, etc., etc. But there are solutions emerging. I don't know if you want me to keep going on. I'm conscious of the time.
No, I have a very good question for you, because you talk about different approaches, bottom up or top up approaches, and you're talking about, you know, how we can make more inclusive investment. So I would like to know what kind of these top bottom or bottom up approaches to support communities, and what approach do you as a Ashton believe most effective, and how must we do to create more inclusive funding or investments?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. People always say top down, bottom up. What is it? And as Ashton, we believe in grassroots solutions. We believe in entrepreneurs. So we are really pushing for bottom up solutions, but it takes top down too, right? It's that kind of classic. It takes both. And I was looking back at a Chatham House paper, 2019 paper, and thinking about the findings that you were looking at there. And I really believe in those. what we're doing in these contexts is creating new markets. New markets don't just come out of nowhere, they don't just evolve. They require entrepreneurism, and they control and they require guidance, and they require support in these really difficult circumstances. So think about them holistically, you know, think about if we're generating new markets, what do we need? And then, you know, so we're going to need data, we're going to need access. How do you move goods and services in and out of camps around energy? How do we enable entrepreneurs to access the capital that they need? Not only capital to start their businesses, but operational capital, OPEX, so that they can have cash flow. So those kind of things are really important if we're going to create markets. But the one thing, when we create markets, we have principles in mind, and the principle that we're all really pushing here is that displaced peoples have to be at the heart of this. If they're at the heart of this, we can design around that and try and make markets work that allow them to create livelihoods and really generate new markets.
Thank you so much. I think I have saved my last panelist because I love her, the work she's doing. But before asking her question or introducing her, I would like to request our tech team to play our next video, please.
اسمي إيمان غالب هادي الحملي، مديرة محطة مشروع صديقات البيئة للطاقة الشمسية. خوف، خجل، كذلك تردد، لكن فيما بعد هذا المشروع اعتماد على النفس، الثقة، لأن كفتيات خريجات ليس لدينا فرصة أمل، ونعين الأسرة كذلك. هذه الدورة التدريبية لمدة 20 يوم، فيها الدورات التدريبية. عملنا دراسات حول المنازل المحتاجة للكهرباء، عملنا دراسة كذلك عن التكاليف المطلوبة للطاقة الشمسية. أول مشروع في مديرية أبس، صح لأنه واجهنا صعوبات في دراستها كمبتدأ لنا، كمبدئيا ل20 شخص بنوصل. طبعا رسالتي أنا لكل فتيات أبس أو في محافظة حجة أو في كل محافظات اليمن أن يسعوا لتحقيق رغباتهم، أن يسعوا لتحقيق أحلامهم وطموحاتهم.
Wow, amazing. Iman, it's really impressive. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for Shaza for helping us for the translation. So my question, I would like to know, what role did UNDP play in helping you establish your Women's Energy Cooperative?
مرحبا للجميع. طبعا اليو ان دي بي اتاحت لي فرصه كقياده وكدور لاعب اساسي في المجتمع الذي اعيش فيه.
Hello everyone, good evening. Yes, UNDP give me the opportunity and the support to start and lead my project in my community.
طبعا هذا المشروع ليس كان كاستفادة لنا كمديرة وشركاتها، وإنما للمجتمع أيضا، وكدخل للشركة لإيمان وشركاتها.
This project was not only for the community and supporting the community, but also is kind of livelihood for us, as she with her friends are having sustainable income because of this project.
طبعا هذا المشروع ليس مشروع كبير يعني يحتوي المنطقة كلها، وإنما جزء بسيط من المنطقة.
It's not a big project actually, so we still need to be supported. It's only like a few.
فأحدث إبراز كبير ونجاح وإبراز كبير جدا في المجتمع رغم الصعوبات التي واجهناها والعقبات.
Though we faced a lot of challenges and barriers, but still we saw a lot of impact on the community because of this small project.
من العقبات كيف نصل إلى دعم المشروع في بداية الأمر.
One of these barriers and important barriers that is the funding, how we can support this project and what we can do to continue.
وبعدها تم إنشاء وتكاليف المشروع من خلال برنامج UNDP والاتحاد الأوروبي الإنمائي.
So she started her idea by the support of UNDP and also the EU for development. UNDP and EU.
كذلك حصلنا على في عام كان المشروع هذا في عام 2019 احتوينا فقط على 22 مشترك وهو تركيب الطاقة الشمسية إلى المنازل.
And this project came to life in 2019 for 22 families. So they have electricity and they have because of the solar station.
في عام 2020 حصلنا على طبعا الجائزة أشدن، فكانت فرصة سعيدة في توسيع المشروع لنا ولإيصاله للمنازل والمحلات والبقالة.
So because of Ashden Awards in 2020, so she can extend this project. So more families and houses and even shops had the electricity.
كون المشروع يقع في شمال اليمن، فالطاقة الكهرباء منقطعة تماما، لا يوجد كهرباء من المؤسسات الوطنية.
The project is in the northern area in Yemen and there is no electricity by government actually. So it's always cutting off. And this is the opportunity for the people to have electricity there.
فقررنا هذا المشروع للتخفيف من معاناة المجتمع وكمصدر دخل لي ولشركاتي.
So this project is to reduce the barriers and to give the opportunity for the community to have electricity, but also for earning sustainable income for the people who are running, like she and her friends.
Thank you, Iman. It's amazing, so impressive. You mentioned about challenge. You face a challenge because of lack of funding. And you also mentioned the opportunities already there because there's lack of electricity and you want. So what would you like to share more about what kind of challenge you are still facing and what kind of opportunity you want to achieve? Especially as of being a woman, maybe.
حصلت على معوقات كثيرة، منها هذه المعوقات أن رفض المجتمع أن تكون المرأة في داخل الميدان.
So she had a lot of barriers actually.
That's what we want to know.
And challenges. And the first one is that being a woman, it's not acceptable to work outside house. And also being a woman working in this domain is really almost forbidden in their area.
ثاني شيء عدم وجود داعمين محليين في المنطقة التي أعيش فيها باليمن بأكمله.
Lack of funders, lack of supporter in her area and in Yemen in general. No one support them.
كما أن الكهرباء انهارت انهارا كبيرا ما قبل الحرب وبعد الحرب وانقطاعها نهائيا، فهذا الذي كان أصعب شيء في الموضوع.
In addition to the cut off the electricity in Yemen in general, before the war it was a little bit better, but after the war started, it became almost dark. So that's make more burden on the community to see how they can have a solution for that.
وكذلك استغلال التجار بالكهرباء بالوقود الديزل الذي يبعث انبعاثات غازية ملوثة قد تؤدي إلى أضرار عديدة.
In addition to all of this set of challenges, they have also like the exploitation of the people who are providing the electricity through the diesel, which is make a lot of pollution in the community, in the environment. So they are also asking for a lot of money to provide this service.
Yeah. Or maybe if you could ask her if you like to replicate this work, what she is doing in near future.
تطبقي هيدا الشيء بالمستقبل القريب بأكثر من مكان ثاني، هذا البروجكت اللي عم تعمليه.
نعم. فالمشروع الطاقة الشمسية أبرز نجاحا كبيرا، فالإقبال عليها من جميع النواحي في المنطقة. فالآن نعمل على دراسة مشروعين إن شاء الله ونحتاج له دعم.
Actually, the successful of this solar station is shown everywhere, and everyone having a high demand on her to bring more and more, and that's make her have two other projects, and now she's doing this study of them, but the funding again is the issue, and she is asking everyone here if you can support so she can provide that in different areas.
فتوسعة المشروع نواجه صعوبات عديدة في عدم وجود قروض ميسرة وعدم وجود كذلك مستثمرين سواء محليين أو أجنبيين في اليمن.
Also, she cannot extend the project because there is no facilitation for loans from the bank, and also there is no investment in either internationally or locally in this such projects.
كذلك عدم وجود الوعي المجتمعي لدى اليمن. كما تعرفون أنه مشروع ابتكاري قابل للتوسع والمرونة والاكتفاء الذاتي.
In addition to that, though it is an innovative project and bringing a lot of opportunities, but the community still are not aware about the importance of this such projects. So also she asked for more awareness about the importance of such projects.
هذا المشروع أول مرة يقيم في اليمن بالطاقة الشمسية للكهرباء، ونتمنى أن يكون سولار الطاقة الشمسية في الكهرباء والمياه والمدارس لتغيير المناخ والتلوث.
This is the first project in Yemen on solar energy, and she hoped that she can provide more for not only electricity but also to heat the water and to bring the electricity for schools and even factories and in all Yemen.
Thank you so much. Please give a big hand to my all panelists. Wow, amazing. So for me, there's so much opportunities. We have researcher, we have humanitarian who are trying to give a visibility. We have local amazing example we can learn from. I would like to know if anyone have a question for our panelists from the audience. Yes, Thomas, please.
Question to Anand. Why is the community the community is not aware of that? Why is this the case? Why do you need more engagement from the community? They should benefit from this electricity, right?
بسبب التقيد والعادات والتقاليد للمرأة. طبعا عدم الوعي، أنا تكلمت عن عدم الوعي من المخاطر التي تؤديها تلوث البيئة بسبب الوقود الأحفوري اللي هي المشتقات النفطية.
So she's speaking about the unaware about the damages of the classical energy in the community. So they don't care whatever they need, electricity or they need power. They don't care if it's solar or it's like a classic one. So that's what she referred to, like in the unaware.
نريد أن نوصل رسالتنا بأن الطاقة الشمسية طاقة متجددة نظيفة خالية من التلوث والضوضاء والأصوات المزعجة.
So what she wants to say that it's like the solar power is really clean, it's unnoisy, so nothing is hurting, And also it's renewable, so everyone can use it every day, every time.
والتخفيف من الأمراض.
And also less illnesses, because the other one will make more like health problems.
Thank you, man. Shukran. I'm just saying if anyone has any question, yes, please. Yes, first you and then maybe.
Yes, my name is Abdulatif. I'm from Somalia. I'm here representing an organization, local organization called Action for Environment. We basically support women. We have adaptation and resilience program, specifically for women who are affected by the climate change. We usually give them skills like cycling skills, something like that. So I just have one question. I want to ask Crystal, because what are the main challenges? What are the main obstacles from your perspective to shift from humanitarian relief to the more climate resilience programs? Thank you.
I think yes.
Hello. Thank you. I really want to congratulate Iman for the great work that you're doing in your community. I am from Burkina Faso in West Africa. I work in the energy sector, but not in the humanitarian energy. So it's a topic that really interests me. That's why I had to come and listen to your insights. So I would like to ask Iman, how much do the community pay for the solar energy? Is it a refugee community or I mean local, maybe host community? So how do you price the energy that is sold to these people? And do you really make benefits from your project, or like for a long-term perspective, how do you plan? Yeah. Thanks.
Yes.
So I'll take the first question then. So what are the barriers in realizing this shift? And I think, Gleda, you went through a number of them and very eloquently, but I think, I think there's sort of the three principal barriers, which is relationships with host communities. That is one, and that's a major one, because the ability to set up enterprises like Iman's and like Innocence and like Dismas and other people that we know doing this kind of work in humanitarian settings, you know, it needs the support of host communities, and that requires a shift in how we see refugees and displaced peoples in these contexts. And then there are the things that I was talking about earlier, like funding and access and licensing and regulation that allows these things to happen. And we could go on and on and on and on. However, the main barrier, therefore, is a mindset shift. What we really appreciate having conversations with incredible people like you guys is that in these communities, they're absolutely packed full of people who are skilled and skillful. And what needs to be unlocked is the talents and the intellect and the ingenuity, if you like, of displaced peoples. You know, they didn't choose to be displaced, they are there, but they have brought everything that they have with them. And so if we can give them some of the tools to get up onto their own 2 feet, to be the entrepreneurs that they can be, then they have many of the solutions that, you know, they can bring for their communities. And that's a mindset shift for all of us, for people communicating about them, for funders and financiers and philanthropists, for policymakers and for host governments. And so, yeah, for me, that's the main thing that we've got to get across.
Thank you. Iman.
طبعا مشروع الطاقة الشمسية كانت من أكثر الصعوبات هي المحلات التجارية. المحلات التجارية بأسعار باهظة، فبيع سعر الطاقة الشمسية ب200 ريال يمني أما بالنسبة للتجار فهي ب 400 ب 450 ريال يمني.
One of the struggle for the community is the expensive prices for the power. So what she did is she sell it for 200 Yemeni riyal, while the other do it 400, 450 or 500.
أن تناسب وضعهم المعيشي.
So she chose the solar because it's cheaper for them and it's more suitable for their income and their daily life.
وكذلك لجلب الناس وتوعيتهم حول الطاقة الشمسية. فبداية الأمر فالآن لدى المجتمع استجابة أكثر، إقبال أكبر على الطاقة الشمسية، ولكن المحطة التي نحتويها ليس لها القدرة على استيعاب العدد الهائل.
In addition to attracting people to this clean energy and clean power, but the problem now that their station is really small, they cannot afford the needs of the community. So now again, she's asking and calling for support.
قررنا أن نبحث عن داعمين للمشروع، وسوف يكون إن شاء الله مشروعين لخلق فرص أخرى ليس لي ولشركاتي بل للمجتمع أيضا لتوصيل الكهرباء ولأشغال يدوية أخرى.
That's why she decided to have extension for their project in two areas, not only for providing electricity, but also to provide sustainable income for them, and also maybe they help to have their own jobs as well if they have the electricity. Because all of them are really now want to have this kind of electricity and energy. I asked her because she's already answered. They are IDPs.
Thank you, man. Thank you, Shukran. I see online question for Innocent, and the question is that, good evening. She's Esther from Kenya, and she's a lawyer, and she really wants to know the question from Innocent. What type of policy would you like to see in the place to support humanitarian energy access?
Yeah, first of all, I think it starts from the people before we talk about energy. Because if the people themselves who should access that energy have restrictions, the policy the policy does not include them, you know, it's already a challenge, because to who are you going to provide the energy? First of all, for example, in the Kakuma refugee camp, the national grid. Yeah, the national grid runs in the Kakuma refugee camp, but the refugees are not allowed to access it. It's not because there is no access to that energy, but it's because the policy doesn't allow them. And when it comes now to enabling the humanitarian energy, we cannot talk about bringing the humanitarian energy to the refugees the same way aid has been being brought to refugees. You know, it should not be imported or, let's say, brought by other people. It should be first supported by the people themselves from the refugee camp. And for those people to be able to support that humanitarian energy, first, that will enable for sustainability, and it will also provide a more resilient solution, which will continue even for the future. And apart from that, we find like the refugees, let's say, for example, you have Kakuma Ventures. Kakuma Ventures is an enterprise that is a Kenyan entity. As a Kenyan entity, how much can I compete with others who are not refugees? That's the big question. Is it because the enterprise does not provide good service, or is it because the people who are behind the company, they are themselves face a lot of problems which are related to policy? And that policy will start from the people. Then we talk about a policy when it comes now to act to energy.
Thank you, Innocent. Nothing about us without us. That's very important, to include people in the policy and debate. The next question is for Jill, for you. And Carla, she's asking, you talk about how affordability in terms of energy access is an important issue on displacement setting. So how does Ashton and other organizations represented here please approach this issue?
Yeah, so that is a really good question. And I think quite like in energy access, we have to be creative. So we've had to innovate business models and financing to really tackle this, both affordability in the hands of the entrepreneur, but also in the hands of the consumer. So we're at early stages, but we absolutely have to think about the role of blending philanthropic capital with other forms of capital to lower the cost of capital altogether in the hands of the enterprise. We have to think about concessionary finance, and it's absolutely fine. It's okay to acknowledge that we're going to need some philanthropy in this space because these are very, very difficult to reach markets. But then we're going to have to think about other things like guarantees, results-based financing, impact bonds. But essentially what we're talking about is capital that is sympathetic to how this will work in a humanitarian context. So we have to think creatively, we have to think innovatively, and I think in addition, we have to think compassionately as well. But I'm sure Gleda, I think you know more about this than me, so I don't know.
Yes, please go ahead.
No, I absolutely agree with Giles. I was just going to throw in that the policy environment really matters. So whether the government allows refugees to work, for example, influences how secure their income is and whether they're able to pay for energy services, and also the ability to travel, so mobility, whether they can get to markets, whether they can source the equipment if they want to run businesses like yours. That's usually quite important. So again, it comes back to the overall vision for integration, and if there's not that vision, then you know, are there secure cash handouts? You know, where is the money coming from to those refugee families, and is it suddenly going to end? Because that makes it very, very difficult for businesses to plan as well. So I think we would always, I know the humanitarian organizations always are in negotiation with governments about these issues. They do matter, and I think where there have been the rights to work, where you've seen that in Uganda and Jordan, or there's access to land and ability to have for instance, long-term tree planting projects and things like that, it has paid off for the host communities as well.
Thank you so much. Anyone else like to say any closing remarks? Anything? Because we are out of time, I think.
Yeah, I think as we are talking about resilience will not come from outside. Resilience will come from inside. And whatever we might think about designing solutions, energy or any other sector, we should first think about solutions that comes from inside, because that way I will be able to talk about sustainability, that will talk about even durability, to see things that will really go beyond the refugee camp. As a temporary place, people want to end their life there, then they should get access to everything so that they don't get disconnected from the world. Yeah.
Indeed. Thank you, Nisan. And I remember African verb, like if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. That's very important. Thank you so much. Please, Iman, would you like to say something?
فرصة سعيدة على إني في هذا المؤتمر في شرم الشيخ أولاً. ثانياً بألتقي بهذه الأوجاع التي نريد أن تستجيب لنا في مطالبنا، وأن تكون أقوال وأفعال وألا تكون آخر مرة إن شاء الله. فشكراً لليو إن دي بي وأشدين وكل من قام بهذا المشروع لتصل أصواتنا لمن نريد أن يسمعها.
Okay. She wants to say thank you for everyone who make it happen, that she's here, and thank you for UNDP and for Ashton and for everyone to bring their voices from Yemen to be here. And she hoped that this is not the last time, and she would like to seek also the support from you to keep them up. And she just wants to say it was really great being here, and thank you.
Thank you, Iman. Thank you. And lastly, I would like to conclude this session by saying that this is an effort by our partner, Global Refugee-Led Network, Chatham House, Ashton, and especially thanks to GPA and UNITAR who bring this partnership to make sure we are creating a global community who are bringing knowledge from the local reality, who are bringing the partnership, who are bringing more research from the inside. Thank you so much. Keep follow and make sure we bring accountability and implementation together. Thank you. Have a lovely evening.